Hi, friends. How are you? If you're out there and you're watching tonight, join me during this live session. And if you are in bed and you're going to catch this tomorrow morning on YouTube, good morning. And also, friends, wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in, it depends on where you are in the world, right? Because it may very well already be morning. So if you're on and this is a surprise live session, but I have so many topics to speak with you guys about, and I'm trying to find the time to squeeze them in. And so in this video, I'm going to be speaking about the emergency rent and mortgage cancellation legislation, guys. I'm going to be speaking about rent and mortgage cancellation. This is part of stimulus discussions that's happening on Capitol Hill. And these discussions impact immigrants and non-immigrants. It impacts everyone. And so I think that it makes sense for us to for me to weigh in and break some things down for you guys. Hi, it's good to see you guys. Good to see you, Ven. Thanks so much for watching tonight. Maria, thank you. Hello from Philly. Hi, Philly is in the house. Good to see you, Diane. Diane is watching from Trinidad. Hi, Diane. Great to see you guys again. Hi, Paula. Another Trinidad and Tobago person in the house tonight. Now I don't feel so alone. Okay. Now, friends, if as you're chiming in to this live session, live broadcast, I should say, comment. Put something in the comment box to let me know you're watching. Give me some hearts and likes. For those of you who are new to me, I'm Latoya McBean Pompey, an immigration lawyer in New York, and I'm also a concerned citizen of the United States. And so all of these stimulus issues are on my mind and on my heart. Good to see you, Rob. Thank you so much for watching from Belize. Thank you so much. Hi, Doreen. Nice to see you on tonight. Carmen is in the house as well. Carmen from Fresno, California. Good to see you. Shauna K, it's always great to see you as well from Florida. And so, friends, what's going on here? So in America, right? There's so much going on in America, I should say. And this is really the time to be paying attention to what's being debated and discussed on Capitol Hill, because a great deal of what's happening in Washington, D.C. impacts so many of us here in the U.S. And so if you're outside of the U.S. and you have relatives here in the U.S., you should be paying attention as well, because what's happening impacts them in a very real way. And so I'm bringing these issues to you in a way that I know how to do it, right? And I hope you find this information valuable. And I will be sharing my opinion as well about a lot of these proposals that's on Capitol Hill, because again, as I've said, it impacts me, my family, it impacts every one of us here. And I think that you guys have the right, you need to know what's going on, okay? And so I'm trying my best to break some things down for you. Keel, it's great to see you as well. I think this is the latest live session I've ever done, but as I've said, I have so much to share with you. I'm just going to just bring it to you whenever I feel inspired and I have the time to do it. So let's go ahead and dive right in, guys. Thank you so much for watching from Texas. From Carl is watching from Chicago. Great to see you, Carl. Felicia, you're not too far. You're in Queens, actually, but you live in Rochester. Great to see you. Hi, Ann. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. Okay, so guys, let's dive in. We're going to talk about the emergency Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act, and I'm going to make the screen, let me do this. Let me hide some things on my screen so that it's easier to read. Okay, so guys, I've broken this down in my style, which is in bullet points for you. Okay, and so we're going to take this one by one, and at the very end of this, I'll share with you my thoughts about this proposal. So this is not the law yet. This is just something that has been introduced by Representative Omar out of Minnesota. Okay, she's a congresswoman out of Minnesota, and so there are some co-sponsors to this legislation as well. So what's happening on Capitol Hill now is that there are quite a bit of stimulus legislation that has been introduced to put money into the hands of people who are going through a really, really hard time right now in America because of the coronavirus. And so part of those discussions is, well, what do you do with rent and mortgage? Because people have to pay their rent. Homeowners have to pay mortgage, or property owners, I should say, have to pay their mortgage. People have real debt and obligations. And so what should we do? How can we, as the U.S. government, I'm just saying we, the U.S. government, how can the U.S. government provide more relief and help to people who really need it? And so this is one of the proposals that's on the table. This is the Emergency Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. Okay, so the first thing that you guys need to understand about this act is that it applies to all rent and mortgage holders. Okay, all rent and mortgage holders, and that and so the types of units or structures, housing structures that's part of this includes it's very broad. It includes apartments, condos, single family homes, duplexes. Guys, get this one: room rentals, okay? Room rentals, legal subleases, and manufactured homes. So if individuals are living in any of these structure types, they can obtain relief under this act if this act becomes goes anywhere, okay? If this becomes the law. Okay, so let me move on. Okay, so your income doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have a very strong salary or income. This would apply to all income levels. This does not only apply to low income renters, right? It does not. It applies, your income does not matter. And also the payment level of for those who are paying mortgages, that also doesn't matter. This is just a very broad proposal, and it's trying to capture just about everyone. Payments, friends, payments of your rent and mortgage payments, those would be suspended. They would be suspended under this proposal. For how long? Well, according to this proposal, it would begin immediately. Rent and mortgage payments would be suspended immediately until 1 month after the end of this national emergency that President Trump declared back in March. Okay, so this is the time that payments would be suspended immediately. Right, starting immediately until 1 month after the end of the emergency, the national emergency. Now, this I thought was interesting. I thought this was an interesting twist. This would actually be retroactive. So if you've paid April's rent or mortgage, you would get that back. It would be reimbursed to you. And so it's retroactive. And so when this legislation was written, obviously the thinking was, okay, we're in a national emergency. We've got to move fast, got to get things done fast. And so we're hoping that this thing can be adopted right away or very soon. And then we're going to throw in April's rent and mortgage. People will be able to get that back. But as you guys know, today's May 3rd, as of the filming of this is May 3rd, right? And so we'll see what happens with this particular retroactive section here. Okay, so landlord, I'm going to switch gears now and talk specifically about landlords. There's a landlord relief fund here that's part of this package. And so landlords can apply to the government, to HUD. Okay, for those of you who don't know what HUD is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And Ben Carson is the secretary. Okay, so Anyway, so landlords, there's so much I want to say, but I cannot say it yet because I want to lay out the facts for you. And then I'll share my opinion later. But landlords can apply to HUD to have the full rent covered, guys, by the federal government. So landlords will have to enter into an agreement with the government to have the rent covered by the government. Now, which landlords can apply? Okay, and earlier we talked about the fact that this is very broad. Doesn't matter what your income level is and all of that. Doesn't matter really what kind of structure you're living in. It captures so many different type of structures and living arrangements. So now the question is, which landlord can actually apply? And so these are the types of landlords that can apply for this relief fund. So there's small property owners, family investors, public housing authorities, nonprofits, and cooperatives will be eligible for this relief fund. But I must say there's a lot of strings attached, landlords. And I know that some of you who are watching me tonight are homeowners here in America, and you rent out maybe a room, you rent out an apartment, you probably own a 2-family house, right? If you're in New York, you have a multi-family unit, and so you have people everywhere, right, in your building or in your space. And I want you landlords, to pay very close attention to what I'm going to share, because there's a lot of strings attached to getting this relief fund from the government. Okay, there's a lot of strings attached. It's not going to be an easy arrangement with the U.S. government. It almost never is. Okay, when you enter into an agreement with the U.S. government, it's usually a very strong agreement, and you have to be able to suck it up if you want that money. So landlords, pay very close attention to the strings that's attached to getting the relief funds. Okay, so landlords, you would be bound for 5 years. Okay, and friends, you can continue to comment. I see that folks are commenting. I love that. Put your comments in the, continue to comment and share this with your feed. I forgot to mention earlier, share this with your feed if you're watching me live. If you're watching after the fact, then just forward this on to folks, because people really need to know what is being talked about on Capitol Hill. So landlords, you would be bound for 5 years to this arrangement. Okay, so that's a long time. Okay, the rent, you would have to freeze the rent for 5 years. You cannot increase the rent. The rent would be frozen for 5 years. Now, the other string, landlords, is that you can only evict tenants for what the government is calling just cause here. I have no idea how this is being defined in this context, okay? But it sounds to me like it's going to be very difficult to evict people during this 5-year period. Moratorium is what they're calling it. During this 5-year period, you cannot evict people just because you want to get them out. You must do it for just cause, whatever that will be defined to mean. The other string that's attached, landlords, to you getting this relief fund is that when you have a tenant that moves out, when that tenant moves out, you could only fill that vacancy with voucher holders. Okay, so you can't just say, okay, I'm going to bring someone else in, and whoever you like, or whoever you think is most qualified to live in that unit. No, that unit must be filled by voucher holders. Okay, now let's keep going. Okay, so then the other string that's attached, landlords, is provision of 10% equity to tenants. I'm not even sure what they're talking about here. Okay, I don't even understand that part. The other thing here, landlords, is you cannot attempt to collect back rent. You cannot collect back rent after the 5 years is over. You can't attempt to go after them after this 5 years is over. You can't go after back rent. Which, kind of makes sense, right? Because if you've applied for this relief fund and you're getting some relief from the government landlord, you're getting money to cover that period of time that you're in this agreement, it would totally be wrong to go after any back rent. What back rent, right? Because you've been getting paid, you've been getting money from the U.S. government. So I could understand why this section would be there. The other thing too with landlords, you cannot report your tenants to debt collectors so that those debt collectors can go after the tenants. You cannot report them. Okay, so friends, again, this is the Emergency Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. That's one of the stimulus proposals on Capitol Hill. You may have been hearing a lot about it because advocacy groups are really talking a lot about it, and certainly on YouTube, it's a very popular issue. People are trying to learn as much information as possible about this emergency rent and mortgage cancellation legislation. Okay, let's keep going. Lenders, the banks, no surprise here, but the banks would also get some relief, and I'm not going to go into a lot of details about how that's being structured in this legislation. I want to focus on the information that applies mainly to you, the viewer, but lenders will also get some relief under this. Now, there's a lot of penalties, big penalties, I should say, for landlords and the banks. If the landlord does not, and I'll just hone in on the landlord, but if the landlord does not comply with the terms of this agreement with the U.S. government, they can face some major, major penalties. Okay, so let's talk just briefly about that. So let's see, if they take an adverse action against a tenant or property owner, that's when at that point you can face the bank as well as the landlord would face penalties if they take adverse actions. Okay, so that's the specific. They cannot take an adverse action during this 5-year period, and even I'm thinking even after the 5-year period based on what I said earlier. So if you have a violation, landlord, and bank, if you have a violation, the first violation is $5,000 penalty or fine. Okay, so this is civil actions that can be taken against the landlord or the bank. The second violation is $10,000 penalty or fine for the second violation, and then the third and subsequent violations, the penalty is $50,000 or forfeiture of property. Now, who is bringing this action? It's actually the U.S. government, right? The Attorney General that would be bringing this action against the landlord or the bank that violates or takes adverse actions against tenants in the case of a landlord. But if it's a lender who's taken an adverse action against the homeowner, the property owner, then the Attorney General can go after that bank or that lender. Okay, so those are the two categories that would face penalties here. Okay, so I'm thinking, that's it. So friends, that's the Emergency Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act that is that's one of the stimulus proposals right now on Capitol Hill. Now, what about immigrants? Because I have to talk about immigrants because I'm an immigration lawyer and I always talk about bring it in somehow. So immigrants, you would get some relief under here too. Okay, this is a very broad bill, and it says that there can't be landlords cannot discriminate. Obviously, we have those laws already on the books about anti-discrimination laws, but there's some very strict requirements in here that landlords would really need to meet, and they cannot deny admission to their property, to their unit, to anyone based on sexual identity or orientation, gender, identity or expression, conviction or arrest record, credit history, and then immigration status. So immigration, so this is very broad. And like I said at the start of this video, that basically anyone can seek to have their rent payment canceled, and mortgage canceled as well, just regardless of immigration status. So here's what I have to say about this. Now, I'm a realist, okay? I live in the real world, just like you guys do, and I see that a lot of people are going through a really challenging time right now in America. Okay, 22 million people have filed for unemployment benefits. A whole lot of folks are facing some serious times right now. And so we have to do something. The government has to do something to assist and help people who are going through a very challenging time. And for some people, this is the first real crisis that they've ever really been confronted with, where they've lost all sorts of income, and people have lost their businesses. Small business owners, they're not going to be able to reopen when the social distancing policies are lifted. A lot of the small businesses may not be coming back, because that's how close, they were operating very close to that line, right? And being shut down for almost 8 weeks now in some places, like in New York, we're close to 8 weeks. That could be detrimental for businesses. And then if it's detrimental to the business, it's detrimental to the employees and everyone. So I understand that people are really going through a real difficult time right now, and the government need to step up. Policymakers, friends, this is their time to shine. This is their time to do something about what's happening. And they're trying. But a proposal like this one, I think, is not grounded in reality. And why do I say that? I say that because in theory, it sounds like a great idea to suspend rent, to suspend mortgage payments, and to give everybody money from the U.S. government. Don't know where the money is going to come from, but just give everybody money, give the banks, give the people, give everyone. And I don't know if that's the way to go, if that's the most responsible thing to do, especially when these legislation are tied to some very, very strict terms. And so I think that this one in particular, the intent, I like the intent, I like the motivation behind it to help constituents, to help people who are really going through a challenging time. But I don't think this is the way to do it. People really need money. People need cash. People need jobs. I think part of the focus really need to be on stimulating the economy in ways that really help small businesses get back on track, because that's if people are working, people can pay their rent. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is that I think that this is going to hurt landlords, small business owners, small landlords. And my mother, she's a landlord. Okay, and she has her properties, and she, at the start of the coronavirus, the first consideration she had was, I hope people will still be paying their rent because I have my mortgage to pay. And so some of you are out there in a similar situation, and you also have a mortgage to pay. And so I think that the smaller landlords will suffer. Although they can apply for aid, the relief under this packet, under this bill, I think that the terms are too strict and hard. And to lock the landlords in for 5 years, and to say that the landlords no longer have the option of renting their place to whoever they choose to, they have to rent to a voucher holder, I think that's a bit harsh. And I know my mother in particular worked super hard in America to be able to even buy one property. Okay, and so I think that's a lot of people in her category who own properties on a smaller scale, I think they may suffer under this. And so I think that elements of this may be taken. There's some smart things in here that they can pull out and apply to something that's more realistic, something that will gain bipartisan support. I don't think this is going to gain bipartisan support on Capitol Hill, but we will see. We will see, right? Congress may surprise me, right? So those are my thoughts today, friends, on the emergency rent and mortgage cancellation legislation. It's just been it's introduced. It has not really moved very far on Capitol Hill yet. Congress will be back in session in a couple of days, I believe, on Tuesday, I think, May 5th. And so they're still talking about other stimulus legislation. I'm going to talk with you guys about those as well, because there are some other interesting proposals that's on the table too. And so, friends, in summary, I don't want to belittle this issue or belabor this issue. Belabor, I think is the word. I don't want to hammer this point out too much, but I do want to say that whatever they put forward, it has to be balanced. It has to be fair to both renters and homeowners. It really has to be fair for both sides, because it's you cannot use the landlords as scapegoats during this time. And the lenders, their relief is in here too, but I don't care about lenders. I care about the renters, and I care about homeowners, okay, property owners. And so it should be balanced and fair for both sides. Now, money, though, is what's needed. People need cash. People need money in their pockets. People need money in their pockets so that they could stimulate the economy, they could spend, they can grow. People need money. That's really what the focus really should be on Capitol Hill. It's on money, because that's where people are hurting the most. So that's what I'd like to share tonight in this video. Okay. All right. McKay, thank you for watching again from Philly. Love Neat. You're in India. Thank you so much for watching. And then Kafui says, it's better they give $2,000 a month. That is better than rent and mortgage cancellation. Yes, this $2,000 a month proposal, which I did talk about, that's an interesting one. There's another proposal on the table that I'm going to touch base about as well, the automatic boost, right? The automatic boost act. I'm going to touch on that. Marva says, well, you heard it from the lawyer on live. That's why you are here listening. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. And I'm in New Jersey, and I'm sorry, Miss okay, I'm sorry. I'm not even going to attempt to butcher your name. My apologies. He says, I'm in New Jersey. There's an executive order that allows tenants to maze rent, tenants to pay rent with a security deposit. Do I need a letter signed by my tenants? I'm definitely not. I have no idea what the New Jersey laws are around tenant issues, landlord tenant issues in New Jersey. Every state is different. So that's a question that I can't answer, but let's scroll back up. Fritz says, but the government said a lot of things, but they don't deliver. That's true. There's a lot of talk. They don't deliver. Why most of the people who apply for unemployment can't get it. I know, and that's the thing. What is it? Maybe 40% of those who should have gotten a stimulus have not received their money yet. And then forget about the whole Paycheck Protection Plan, PPP. That's a big debacle. Things just got very messy. They really botched this whole stimulus thing, and we just need better policymakers, right? Filing for okay. Okay, when will this start? We don't know yet. This has been proposed. And Congress is on their little recess. They'll be back on Tuesday. And so we'll see how aggressive they are to move forward with this kind of legislation and others that are on the table. Normally what happens, guys, and many of you probably already know this, but for those of you who are not familiar with the legislative process in the US, normally the way it works is that, you could have a number of legislators put proposals out there. And then they actually come together and they have like maybe one bill, right? They could pull pieces from this one, that bill, this, and then they have their one bill that makes its way through a committee. And then once the committee votes out on it, it goes to the floor for the larger body to vote on. And so this hasn't made real traction even on the committee level yet, and it has to go through committee approval before it goes before the full body. That's kind of that's the process. Yeah, so they are gaining extra when they collect rent. Exactly. Thank you for that, Jennifer. I'm doing terrific. It's late, but wherever some people, it's morning in their country, so I'm catching some people in the morning. Some landlords are charging late fees. Well, are they allowed to do that? Yeah, they're allowed. They can do that now. But if something like this goes through, that would not be acceptable. That would be considered an adverse action that they could not do if something like this goes through, but they could certainly do that now in any lease. Okay, and guys, this is the U.S. government. I want you guys to step back, think for a moment here that here we are in a republic form of government, right? We're under a republic, not the Republican Party, but we're in a republic society, and the proposals that are coming forward these days are very, very, socialistic, so to speak. Meaning that they want a very heavy hand played by the government in private affairs and business. This is contract between your landlord and the tenant. That's a local state. That should be regulated by the state, in my political opinion, guys. Now, some of my political opinion is coming forward here, but I do believe strongly that the locals should rule and have say so over issues like this, not the federal government, because the federal government can be very, very heavy-handed, and I definitely don't want the federal government in any contracts that I'm in, right? Do you? It can be very, very intrusive. So with that being said, friends, thank you so much for joining tonight's session. Share this with other people, and I have a lot of stuff that's coming down the pike this week. It's a busy week at my office, and then also very busy with the information that I'll be sharing with you about what's happening on Capitol Hill. Friends, thanks so much for joining me, and do share this with other people, and I will see you in the next one. And if you're in the East Coast and it's approaching like 11:30 p.m., have a good night. Bye-bye, guys.